growing as entrepreneurs start and expand businesses in our downtown. However, we cannot be complacent with our growth and must work together in making Princeton stand out. Transparency in spending and structuring a practical yet functional budget are critical to keeping Princeton moving forward. I promise to prioritize our needs based on citizen benefit and affordability. We can't grow if we don't create and pursue a new vision for Princeton. I hope to earn your vote on November 6th. If elected to City Council, I intend to keep your best interest in mind and work with you to make Princeton a place we can be proud to call home. Vote number 8 on the ballot, Morgan Russo for Princeton City Council.
Paid for by Morgan Russo for City Council.
It's time for the Sideline Report with Princeton Times leader, sports editor Todd Griffin. Talking sports and more here on 1580, 103.3 WPKY, and worldwide at WPKYonline.com. Here's your host, Todd Griffin.
And good morning, everyone. Welcome to another Sideline Report on WPKY Radio. It's a rainy, dreary day throughout the county, but hopefully we can brighten up your spirits a little bit with some sports talk this morning here on the show. And joining us from Your Sports Edge and WKDZ Radio this morning is Scott Brown. We've got Scott on the phone. Scott, how's it going?
Well, good morning, Todd. Doing all right. How about yourself?
Not doing too bad outside the weather. I hope you had a happy Halloween yesterday and got all the treats you wanted.
Yeah, well, I didn't do too bad. You got a nice little treat when the storm rolled in, and had to go pick some limbs out and such. But all in all, not too bad. At least everything had been moved to the day before wisely, and wasn't a lot of people caught out in that mess last night.
Well, a big weekend football coming up for a lot of teams. It's playoff week, and we're going to talk about that. We need to get to a break first, though, and we'll be back with Scott, and we'll have football coming up. The Tigers hosting Edmonson County Friday night at Tiger Stadium. Game time is 7 o'clock, so make sure you make note of that, and hopefully this wet weather gets out of here in time for us all to enjoy a nice football game Friday night. We'll be right back on the Sideline Report with Scott Brown joining us this morning.
Since 1978, Perry's Floors & More has been selling, installing, and servicing homeowners throughout Western Kentucky with quality flooring and workmanship. Perry's Floors & More carries luxury vinyl plank and luxury vinyl tile, carpet, window treatments, and more. Brands like Mannington, Shaw, Tarkett, Beaulieu, and Flexitech. Quality brands, excellent customer service, combined with 40 years experience is why they say you can walk on our reputation. See Bill and Lucy at Perry's Floors & More, 127 West Market Street,
I'm Jared
Princeton.
Jackson, and I'm running to be your district judge. I was born in Caldwell County and have been a practicing attorney in Princeton for the last 11 years. I'm very proud to be the son of 2 retired public school educators. When elected, I pledge to always treat everyone fairly and to administer justice in an impartial and unbiased manner. I have proudly served my community as a former president of the Chamber of Commerce and former co-chairman of Relay for Life. I'm committed to continued service to the citizens of Western Kentucky. Again, I'm Jared Jackson, and I would appreciate your vote on November the 6th.
Paid for by the campaign fund of Jared H. Jackson for District Judge.
Penn Home Medical voted best home medical provider in Western Kentucky 3 years in a row. From home oxygen to beds to power wheelchairs, they have it all. They guarantee the best price on the same items. Portable oxygen concentrators, only $32 a month. Personal alert monitors with no month fee ever, only $199. Rated A+ by the Better Business Bureau. If quality counts, call and request Penn Home Medical, 1-800-445-8002.
We are back on the Sideline Report, and it sounds like Scott Brown brought his music with him this morning, because I'm pretty sure that's some of the background music that you hear when Scott Brown's on the air over at WKDZ sometimes.
Yeah, a little bit Donnie Irish in the morning. Can't go wrong with that.
We talked about football coming up. We want to remind everyone that if you're heading out to the football game Friday night against Edmonson County at Tiger Stadium and you're a season ticket holder, you will need to purchase another ticket to get your seat back, your chair back seat. Those are $10. You can purchase those right now at the high school. You'll need to contact Kim Farmer at CCHS to make sure you get your ticket. Again, if you're wanting your chair back seat for the playoff games, it's $10. And again, contact Kim Farmer at the high school. Well, Scott, it's a busy week, as always, in the sports world. A lot of football action coming up. Caldwell County will be at home. Tree County, those hitting the road, and you guys get to go to E-Town this week.
Yeah, second year in a row. could have took care of business and went to LaRue County, but lost to Union County a couple of weeks ago. So they're in, Trig's in the playoffs for the second straight year. They saw a playoff streak snapped a couple years ago when they missed 2 straight years. That hadn't happened since the early 90s. But, everybody has said that E-Town is not as good as they were last year, but they're still good. And, Trig has to go and try and win a game in the Eastern time zone, something they hadn't done since the 1970s. So, it's going to be tough, but we'll see what happens. E-Town, very nice facility. Very impressed when we went up last year. Glenn Spalding, the athletic director, does a good job with their sports. But, yeah, their facilities, for them to be a smaller school, very top-notch.
Well, I was going to say, at least if there's a positive this week, you get to go play on the artificial turf, and you're not going to be standing, knee-deep in mud on the sideline. It's a pretty easy trip, and, there's some nice places to eat up there, so it's a good trip all the way around, I think, when you go to E-Town, except for the fact of having to play the Panthers.
Yeah, I've kind of got to the point in my life where whenever I go cover something or go to an athletic event, it's centered around food. Where can I go eat? What's good to eat, in that town or in that city, especially during football season. Try and map out where to go eat, throughout. But, yeah, they've got several good things. Actually, but the trip for me starts tonight. I have to go to Lexington tonight. Hopkinsville is in the state soccer semifinals tonight at Frederick Douglass High School in Lexington. And so we thought it'd be easier for me to drive to Lexington tonight, cover that, and spend the night, and then just drive the hour into E-Town for the football game because I have to be back in Lexington Saturday morning for the state cross-country meet, which is, again, at Lexington. So I'll be very acquainted with the Bluegrass Parkway between E-Town and Lexington over the next couple of days.
Oh, yeah. And we do want to talk a lot of football today, but that Hopkinsville soccer team, is it a bit of a surprise that they've made the Final Four in the state and are still going?
Well, I think anytime you lose 12 seniors off of a team, you expect a little bit of a letdown, but they've made some tweaks and they've done some things right. After watching Trigg County time, and I'm not saying Trigg's a bad soccer team. Trigg won 14 games and advanced to the region semifinals. But if you'd have told me after Trigg tied them 2-2 that this is a team that would go to the state semifinals, I would have shook my head a little bit. But they have figured some things out and got their defense in real good shape. And, they've outscored their opponents something like 36-5 in the postseason. And, they're making a good, solid run. And, you have to give your hats off to the coaching staff there and some of their upperclassmen and even their underclassmen that have figured things out, where they need to be and such. But, yeah, it's a little bit of a surprise, but it's good because you don't normally see a team from Western Kentucky make this steep of a run in the soccer tournament. When it comes to soccer and volleyball, the cards are always stacked against Western Kentucky schools, either through the draw or through the fact that, especially in volleyball, the triangle schools have been doing it for 20 years more than everybody else. So they've got a huge advantage when it comes to the state tournament and the soccer. It's kind of the same way. It's geared toward the bigger schools and especially the ones that are in Louisville and Lexington.
Well, when you get to the postseason, you never really know what's going to happen. That's the beauty of it. But if you look at some Caldwell County runs in the past, some of those have kind of come out of nowhere. And, I always say when you go into the playoffs, it's just about getting into a good run. Several years ago, I guess it was 2012, Caldwell County went down to Mayfield the last football game of the season, and, just really played poorly, got blown out, and wasn't sure if it would win a playoff game. That Tiger team ended up in the state championship game and was a few seconds away from winning that thing. So, sometimes you just get through the season and get on a run in the playoffs, and you never know what might happen.
Well, Hoptown, they've got a good scorer in Ryan Roussel. And they've got a goalie on a mission right now with Xavier Bussell. Very good goalie, but felt a little bit snubbed that he didn't make the all-region team. And this is a kid who doesn't give up a goal a game. And when you got a hot, it's kind of like hockey. When you got a hot goalie, you can ride that hot goalie pretty far in the playoffs. And that's kind of what Hopkinsville is doing with Bussell. He made some big plays in the Callaway County game that helped them win, and then some big plays in the game went over Butler last week. So we'll see what happens. They take on a Highlands team tonight that hadn't lost to a Kentucky school and has only given up 11 goals all year long. So they've definitely got their work cut out for them, but, it's not like Highlands is there every year either. They're in the state semifinals for the first time in 6 years, and they haven't been to the state championship in a decade. So it's two teams that are playing really good right now that don't normally get this far in the postseason.
Well, good luck to Hopkinsville. We always like to see the Western Kentucky teams do well when they get on up into the state tournament and advance as far as they can. And like you said, we're kind of the forgotten end of the state sometimes, so best of luck to Hopkinsville. I do want to get back to football, though. We talked a little bit about the playoffs. The Tigers at home against Edmonson County. Trigg County is going to E-Town. If you look at the first region in Class 3A, it's kind of hard to pick a favorite out of that because Caldwell County is right there. Paducah Tillman's there. E-Town is coming on strong. Scott, how do you kind of handicap the first region in 3A?
I think this is the year that it sets up pretty good for Caldwell County. And in looking at the matchups, I think that E-Town may be the only team in District 2 that gets a win in the first round. I watched Union County a couple of weeks ago. They made a change at quarterback. Their defense playing really good over the last couple of weeks. They shut Trigg County out. That hadn't happened to Trigg in over a year and a half. But they went to Murray last week and held Murray to 8 points, beat them 10-8. And Murray's a team averaging 37 points a game. So they've kind of, and if you remember, they held Caldwell County to 7 points in the first half before Caldwell County figured some things out and went on to blow them out. But right now, Union County playing pretty good defensively. LaRue County not as good as they have been. They've lost 3 out of 4. LaRue 5-5, Union County 7-3. So I think Union County's playing pretty good. I think it's a case of Caldwell County's probably going to see Union County for a second time. To me, the X factor, as it always is Paducah Tillman. You think Paducah Tillman has got a team that's capable of advancing to the region championship. In the last 3 years, they just went up and got embarrassed by E-Town in the second round each of the last 3 years. Now, Tillman 8-2, playing better, I think, but they get Hart County in the first round. Hart County's never won a postseason game ever. They're 0-10. Hart County 7-3. They have not won 7 games in a year since the 1980s.
Wow.
So, I mean, Hart's having that year, but unfortunately for them, it's going to end at Paducah Tillman Friday night. But, yeah, I'm really curious to see what Tillman does this year. If this is the year they can get past E-Town. And if so, if you're Caldwell County, would you rather play E-Town, even though you're going to have to go on the road, or would you rather see Tillman a second time? You've already beat them. And you know what they bring to the table, but still that roster is pretty dangerous, and they've battled some injuries this year. So I think it sets up pretty good for Caldwell County, even though they have to go on the road in the first round, or they would have to go on the road in the third round.
Yeah, if they get to E-Town, and you mentioned the $1 million question: do you want to play E-Town or do you want to play Paducah Tillman? I think the prevailing thought among the Tigers and the coaches is they want to beat E-Town and get over that hurdle.
Right.
For me, I would rather have the extra home game. It makes it a lot easier, to cover and get your fans there, and it's just easier to win on your home turf, I think. But you mentioned Paducah Tillman. They're really good. Had some kids out maybe when Caldwell County played them. Some of those kids are starting to come back. But, they're a team that's kind of tough to figure out sometimes, too, because it seems like they either blow people out or, they struggle against people. So, but their two losses were Caldwell County and Mayfield, so no real shame there either.
I think they're set up, like Caldwell County, I think this is the year they're set up to beat E-Town. Whether they could do it, we'll have to wait and see. But you look at the path for Caldwell County, they're playing Edmonson County in the first round. First time since 1998, Tigers went on to win the state championship when they beat Edmonson County in the second round that year. Edmonson County has 4 wins. 2 of those wins are against teams that haven't won a game, and the other 2 have combined to win 4 games. So not a sterling resume that the Wildcats have, and they haven't won a first-round game since 2011. So I think Caldwell County's in good shape. It'd be a nice little bounce back for them after the tough loss to Mayfield. And then I think in the second round, that's when things really, get going with, I think it'll be Union County. And then either Tillman or E-Town in the region championship. Now, everything changes next year. Of course, Caldwell County drops down to 2A, but in Class 3A, this is, if you're in District 1, which is next year will be Tillman, Trigg, Webster, and Union. It'll be a 4-team district. You're automatically in. Next year, the cross-districting or the cross-bracketing of districts begins in the postseason. Now, they've been doing that in Class 6A, where 1 year, if you're in Western Kentucky, you may play a Louisville district, and then the next year you may play a Lexington district. Well, in Class 3A next year, you're going to see E-Town and LaRue again because it's District 1 and District 3. In 2 years, this is how crazy this gets. In 2 years, it's District 1 and District 5, and you could have a first-round game at Bell County in 2 years.
Yeah, I think that's nuts.
Bell County is 278 miles away from Cadiz, all right? To put this into perspective, it's 7 miles longer to drive to Cincinnati than it is to Bell County from Cadiz. And that could be a first-round game for Trigg County. Or what about Paducah Tillman have to go all the way to Bell County in the first round or in the second or in the third round? And then in 3 years, you're matched up against Christian Academy of Louisville and DeSales and Mercer County. So the playoff picture for Class 3A gets really rough after this year. Now, if you're looking at Caldwell County, I think they got a sweet deal in Class 2A because next year they're going to be matched up against the district that will include Clinton County, Edmonson County, Greene County, Metcalfe County, and Monroe County. Monroe's the only good team in that bunch. And then in 2 years, it'll be a Northern Kentucky matchup against either Carroll County, Gallatin County, Walton Verona, Owen, or Trimble County. And then it gets tougher in 2021. That's when you're matched up against Danville, Lexington Christian, or Somerset. But they're going to try that cross-districting in all the classes starting next year for the next 4-year schedule or alignment cycle. And, for an organization that prides itself on, it seems like every time they change something, it's for the benefit of travel. When it comes to football, they've really messed things up at this 6th class.
Well, that's the one thing, the narrative has always been we want to reduce travel, and then you see that you have District 1 playing District 5 in the first round of the playoffs, and you're driving all the way across the state.
Yeah, that to me it makes no sense. I always wonder, I'm not the biggest flag waving, supporter of the KHSAA in a lot of things. They get some things right, but they're tweaking a lot of things. And when you start changing things, you're kind of sending the message that what you're doing is not working. They left basketball untouched for years. Why? Because the Sweet 16 was working. And all of a sudden, they take a little dip in attendance and have some issues with securing Rupp Arena. They change the format. They go away from the 2 games on Saturday morning and championship Saturday night to 2 games Saturday night and championship Sunday. And their attendance has tanked a little bit in the last decade since they've started doing that. It's kind of the same way with football. You had it set right in football, and you start tweaking things, you start changing things, and to me that's a sign that what you're doing is not working when you change some things. If it's working good, leave it alone. Let it work out. But it's interesting. And like I said, Caldwell County is in a much better situation moving to Class 2A, even though they'll be in the same district with Mayfield. But in terms of the district's matchups in the postseason, much better than what 3A's got coming up for them.
Well, I was going to say Mayfield is obviously the big deal when you go back to Class 2A, but again, just going back to the whole thing about 6 classes in football, I'm not really sure I'm a big fan of that. It seems to me like that's a little watered down. I'll be honest, I'm not sure I have a great fix for all of it. I understand coaches not wanting to play the same teams every year in the playoffs, but I'm not sure having District 1 and District 5 trying to match up is the way to go either.
Well, I think bigger districts would solve that problem, because the reason why that you're playing the same team every year is because there's only 4 teams in a district or 5 teams in a district. There's not a lot of chance of any shuffling around to take place. One thing the KHSAA did years ago, they got out of it in the about 2002, I think was the last year they had 8-man football. I'd like to see the KHSAA bring back 8-man football for the small schools like Fulton City. This is the perfect way for Fulton City to continue to field a football team, is play 8-man football where you're not as contingent on your line. You got fewer players on the field. But schools like Caverna and Eminence and Bethlehem, they cut their teeth in 8-man football before they made the jump to regular football. And I'd like to see the KHSAA bring back 8-man football for the small schools like Fulton City. Caverna would be one that would benefit from that. And then you got a school like Livingston Central that met last year to decide whether or not they want to field a football program. What better way for them to get started than to play in 8-man football? And that way they can kind of, learn the process and learn how it works, and it's still fun. And Livingston Central's not put in the same district as Mayfield right off the bat.
That would be interesting, yeah.
Then what that'll do is that'll eliminate about 10 to 15 smaller schools, and it would make the KHSAA go back to a 5-class system. I think with a 5-class system, now you'll see the districts go back to about 6 or 7 teams, and your regular season schedule will definitely mean more because there's a bigger chance of you not making the playoffs or getting a good seed, because you'll be in a district with 6 or maybe 7 teams.
We are talking this morning with Scott Brown of Your Sports Edge and WKDZ Radio, and we need to get to a break here on the Sideline Report, but we've got more football talk coming up and maybe even talk a few other things. So stay with us here on the Sideline Report on WPKY.
Here's your WPKY Weather Edge Weather Center forecast.
The rain and thunderstorms are going to continue today with temperatures falling down to around 49. There's a 30% chance of showers overnight with overnight lows around 42. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a high near 56 and a 20% chance of showers overnight tomorrow with mostly cloudy skies and lows around 40. Today again, the rain and thunderstorms are going to continue with temperatures around 49.
Your WPKY Weather Edge Weather Center forecast is brought to you by Rogers Pet Grooming.
Whether it's a new addition to your home, a family vacation, or just keeping up with the bills, let ABC Finance and its friendly staff help you with your needs. ABC Finance can help you get through the tough times and the good times. Whatever life throws your way, ABC Finance can help. So stop by and see Jody, Sarah, or Virginia today at ABC Finance, located on 62 West, the Princeton Plaza in Princeton. Phone 270-365-7444.
We're back on the Sideline Report this morning. Scott Brown of WKDZ Radio and your Sports Edge is joining us. And, Scott, just a whole lot to talk about. And you look at the region playoffs. In Class 1A, I think Crittenden County has a chance to come out of the region down there. And 2A, looks like Mayfield is going to come out of that. So a lot of teams in the area with a good chance to advance a long way in the football playoffs this season.
They do. This is the year that the people in Marion have had circled on the calendar for a while. You know, when you're in a small rural area and you watch a group of kids come through the system, at some point you say, boy, when that group gets to be seniors, watch out. And I think with their football team, that's true this year. They've kind of expected some big things out of this group. I think Campbellsville kind of stands in the way once again. Crittenden thought they had it last year, thought that last year was going to be a good way for them to make the semifinals, and Campbellsville came in and thumped them pretty good. Campbellsville's 9-1. They're a good team, and Crittenden has to make the trip to Campbellsville if they meet up in the region. But I don't think it's going to be, I don't think anybody's going to stand in their way for the first two rounds. That'd be a real good matchup for the region championship. And then, of course, after that, you get the right to move on to go to Northern Kentucky and play Beechwood, who's the two-time defending Class 1A state champs. So if Crittenden County is going to make a deep run, they're going to have to earn it, and they're going to have to do it on the road, which will be interesting. Mayfield's Mayfield. They've won 130 playoff games in their history. Some schools hadn't played 130 playoff games. They last lost a first-round playoff game in 1975.
Wow.
Since the state expanded to the 14 playoff system, they've won a region title 23 out of 27 years. So they get Hancock County in the first round. Hancock County slipped up, lost to Todd County, and their reward was to go to Mayfield. Murray will host Todd County. Todd County playing well, but then lost to Union County last week in a bit of a head-scratcher. The interesting Bizarro matchup has Ballard Memorial going to McLean County in the first round. Ballard Memorial, who doesn't have a kid with more than 70 rushing attempts and throws the football an average of 47 times a game, will take on McLean County. They haven't thrown the football more than 50 times all year long, and they average 48 rushing attempts a game. So that'll be a battle of the wills there. I think McLean County, though, will win, but that'll be an interesting matchup there. So, I think it comes down to Mayfield again. They've advanced the state championship game the last 2 years and lost, and I think they're like Crittenden County. This is the year they've circled on their calendar. They're 10-0 and got some impressive wins on their resume, and they feel like this is the year they can get past the Louisville hurdle of DeSales and Christian Academy and bring home state championship.
Yeah, I think this is one of the better Mayfield teams that I've seen, too. they're huge up front. They can do a lot of things on offense. They've got quite a bit of speed. That was one thing that stood out to me last year over Mayfield teams of the past, is just how much overall team speed the Cardinals have. And the Tigers actually played pretty well down there last week. Ended up losing 31-14, but that was a 14-14 game at halftime, and the Tigers missed some opportunities in the first half maybe to do a few other things. So I think that was actually a pretty good showing for Caldwell County going into the playoffs, because, like I said, I think Mayfield is just, perennially they're good, and this year they might be even better than usual.
They will, but Christian Academy's really good this year. DeSales is really good this year, and both of them make the move up to Class 3A next year. So the Class 2A path really becomes Mayfield's in the next 4 years, because the three teams that have given them, or the two teams that have given them the most trouble, Christian Academy and DeSales, make the move up in class. And so now Mayfield's district gets tougher because Caldwell County comes into it, but the overall path, I think, becomes a little bit easier for them. And like I said, you get into that cross-districting where who knows where they'll have to go in the first round. But like we said, it gets easier for Caldwell County in terms of the postseason. Definitely gets easier for Mayfield as well. So I think it sets up nicely for both Mayfield and Caldwell County in the next 4 years.
This week, the Tigers hosting Edmonson County at Tiger Stadium in the first round of the playoffs. Again, if you are a season ticket holder and you want your chairback seats, you'll have to purchase those for $10. You can do that today at the high school. Contact Kim Farmer at CCHS to get your chairback seats if you want to get out there for the Tigers' home playoff game against Edmonson County. Caldwell County in the playoffs for the 14th straight year. They've met Edmonson County twice all time. Edmonson County actually came here and upset the Tigers 20-7 behind the running of Wes Vincent, who carried 40-something times for 200-something yards back in 1996. The Tigers got them back 2 years later, though, beating them 16-0, but that was a 3-0 game at halftime. And Edmonson County is a team with some big kids up front. I don't think they have the speed of some of the teams the Tigers have seen this season, but Scott, you start playing some of those teams from over in that area, and they have some big kids, and they come in fired up. They can kind of move you around a little bit, and you have to be a little weary of those teams, even though the record's not great.
Well, you mentioned that. It's interesting that 98 team was able to get past Edmonson County, and then in the region championship played Hancock County. Hancock County was a year away. If you remember, they had Travis Atwell, who went on to win Mr. Football the following year. That was the 1998 was the last year of the alignment cycle, and in 1999, Trigg County moved into the same district with Hancock County, and we went to Hawesville and got absolutely hammered by Travis Atwell. That kid did everything he wanted to do in terms of running, throwing, returning punts, returning kicks, and Caldwell County beat them in the region championship game. But that was a Hancock County team that was a year away. I still remember going and watching Hancock County beat Mayfield at War Memorial Stadium to win the region title in 1999. And again, Atwell just put on an absolute show. Committed to Kentucky and went to Kentucky and then transferred to Toledo after a couple of years. But, yeah, that was back when the central Kentucky area put out some solid teams like Edmonson County and the Monroe counties were really good during that time. And it just seems like that in the south central part of the state, the bigger schools have gotten a lot better, and the smaller schools are really suffering.
Talking about Edmonson County this year coming here, and I was trying to do a little research on how the Wildcats actually made the playoffs, and they ended up beating Adair County 21-20 in overtime, and that's why Edmonson is the 4th seed, and Adair County did not make the playoffs. But Adair actually scored first in that overtime, went up 20-14. Then Edmonson had it, faced a 4th and 11, and threw an incomplete pass in the end zone. But Adair County was called for pass interference on the play. Not only that, but Adair County's coach was then assessed an unsportsmanlike conduct penalty. Edmonson County ended up with the ball at about the 2 or 3 yard line, scored on the next play, kicked the extra point, and that's why Edmonson County is coming here this week instead of Adair County. So, that's kind of an interesting way, Scott, to get into the playoffs.
Adair County is that one school that is in a college town that is not good at football for whatever reason. And it's one of the few in the state that way. You look at Boyle County, they have Center College. Boyle and Danville are real good. Owensboro's got Kentucky Wesleyan, and their schools are pretty good. In Williamstown, or Williamsburg has the Cumberlands. Williamsburg is always good in Class A football. But for whatever reason, Adair County has always struggled with their football program. Now, in basketball, they're pretty good. But, especially the way Lindsey Wilson has turned things around, Adair County's made 11 trips to the postseason, only won 3 games. And for the longest time, they didn't win their first playoff game till 2015. Those 3 wins have come in the last few years. So they're kind of a tough program to figure out. But Adair County won 1 game. So, like I said, Edmonson's schedule has not been the strongest. And I think Caldwell County will be in pretty good shape Friday night when they take on the Wildcats. I think it sets up well for Caldwell County the way the playoffs are this year.
And we're talking to Scott Brown of Your Sports Edge and WKDZ Radio, and we need to get to another break here on the Sideline Report. So one more time out, and we'll be back in just a minute.
Here's your WPKY Weather Edge Weather Center forecast.
The rain and thunderstorms are going to continue today with temperatures falling down to around 49. There's a 30% chance of showers overnight with overnight lows around 42. Mostly cloudy tomorrow with a high near 56 and a 20% chance of showers overnight tomorrow with mostly cloudy skies and lows around 40. Today again, the rain and thunderstorms are going to continue with temperatures around 49.
Your WPKY Weather Edge Weather Center forecast is brought to you by the Joshua Tree.
Hello, this is Dorsey Ridley. Quality education, good jobs, a strong economy, and improved infrastructure. I've stood in the halls of Frankfort fighting for these values. These are the values that will move Western Kentucky forward. I'm Dorsey Ridley, and I hope you will stand with me on November the 6th to ensure our region will continue to prosper and grow. I humbly ask for your vote to improve the quality of life in Kentucky. Paid for by Dorsey Ridley for States.
Hey, Coach, got a new hairdo for the game tonight.
Robert, that's a hair don't. Hair should either be high and tight or out of sight. Made a bad choice, son. These street tacos, however, were a good choice. See, they come with sirloin steak and pork carnitas now. Sometimes choices are good.
So you like my hair?
No, I do not, Robert. Only the day, Bobby.
Get 3 street tacos for just $5, including new sirloin steak and pork carnitas. Only the day at Taco John's.
Taco John's, Princeton.
We roll on the Sideline Report on a Thursday morning on 1580, 103.3 WPKY. Thanks for joining us. Scott Brown of Your Sports Edge and WKDZ Radio is with us on the phone this morning. And, Scott, we appreciate you coming on the show this morning and talking some football with us. And, hey, is there a big game in Lexington this weekend or what? That might be the biggest game in UK football history, at least during my lifetime.
Yeah, I think so. I saw on Twitter where the game is going to be exactly 6 years to the day the infamous Vanderbilt loss. It cost Joker Phillips his job, the 40-0 loss. So in 6 years, they've went from losing to Vanderbilt and firing their coach to playing for a chance to play in the SEC championship. And, you've been a Kentucky fan for a long time, and you've seen Kentucky lose some football games in ways that just make you scratch your head. And Saturday, was one of those that's how they normally lose games, and they were able to turn around and do that to Missouri. And you have to think that when you win games like that maybe that's where you see the turnaround happening. That's when it's like, well, maybe we got this train moving in the right direction at the right speed, and maybe it's their year. Their defense is awfully good, and if you've got a good defense in the SEC, you're going to do well. And their defense is very strong. If they can get their offense figured out and not get too cute, I think they've got a legitimate shot at Georgia.
I was actually sitting in the end zone at one end of the field, the opposite end from where LSU scored during LSU's Bluegrass Miracle. So yes, I've seen Kentucky with just some absolutely heartbreaking defeats.
I was at the Georgia Dome when Marty Moore fumbled in the Peach Bowl. Tree County had a kid, Robert Stinson, that was playing for Kentucky at the time, and I actually scored credentials to go to the Peach Bowl. So went there, and Kentucky was on their way to winning, and Marty Moore unfortunately fumbled. But yeah, you talk about Marty Moore, you talk about Chris Doring, the late catch. You could talk about a couple of years ago, Kentucky went to Florida, should have won the game, but with the clock at 0, and they don't call the delay a game on Florida. I mean, you can go through the years and recount, man, how does a program lose games in the fashion they lose games? But you look at it this year, Kentucky's now winning those games, and I think that's where you could tell that the program has perhaps turned things around a bit, and you hope that it really pays off in the recruiting game. That's where you want to, cash in the success that they've had this year, and hopefully get some more, studs coming into Lexington.
Well, we could actually find out this afternoon how many or how much that's going to pay off, because the kid from Western Hills, Wandell Robinson, I think is going to announce his college decision this afternoon, and a lot of people are thinking that maybe it's Kentucky now.
Here it's down to Kentucky and Purdue. Jeff Brom is smart enough to figure out that if he can snag the best talent in the state of Kentucky, he'll be in good shape. I mean, Rondell Moore is proving that. How that kid didn't win Mr. Football is beyond me, but he didn't. But he's kind of showing that. And, of course, he is sometimes starter and back up with Elijah Sindelar. Again, when you can go in and get the best players, in Kentucky, you're going to be in pretty good shape. Now, do they produce the talent that like a Georgia or a Florida does with 15 to 20 of them? No, but if you can get the best 2 or 3 that the state has, you'll be in pretty good shape. And I think that's important for Kentucky. I think that, Robinson is a must-get right now, because it's hard to say you've turned the program if you can't keep the state's best players here, because Kentucky's not going to have to worry about going against Louisville. See, Louisville was getting the best players there for a little bit, and it was a kind of a three-headed monster. You had kids picking between a good Western program that had Jeff Brom and Kentucky and Louisville. Well, Brom's went to Purdue, and Louisville's went in the tank. So there's really no excuse. Now, the kid could go to a school for any reason. In Elijah Sindelar's case, I remember interviewing him, and he was very high about the engineering program at Purdue. That was another factor he told me that led him to going there, was the classes that they offered in terms of the engineering department. I get that part of it, but if you're Kentucky and you're playing for an SEC championship, you should be able to win the in-state recruiting battle.
Well, it's a big weekend for the SEC. Not only Georgia at Kentucky Saturday afternoon, but then Bama at LSU in a big Western Division showdown Saturday night. So the Southeastern Conference can't put on much better of a showcase than that. But on the recruiting front for UK, I don't think there's any question that Stoops and company have done a great job of stockpiling talent. But the question all along was, would they ever coach that talent up and get over the hump? And at least so far this season, it looks like they are.
Well, they have an SEC defense. They've figured out that you have to have speed in the secondary, and you have to have speed at the linebacker spot. And I think Josh Allen proves that. But not only him, Cash Daniel as well, very underrated in terms of his speed. And I think they have figured out this is, you talk about a coach needing 4 years and get a full recruiting class in order to prove, what he can do. And this is the 6th year, and he's figured out he's got to have speed in the secondary and size, and he's got to have size up front, but he's got to have some fast linebackers. And that's one thing Kentucky has always produced are good linebackers. Wesley Woodyard and Danny Trevathan, Avery Williamson. I mean, they've went on to play and make millions in the NFL. They've always produced solid ones. And so they've got that part figured out. They're still trying to figure that out on offense. They have kind of figured out that it starts with a big SEC-sized offensive line, and that's probably the strength of Kentucky's offense is their offensive line. That and a kid named Snell in the backfield. But I don't know. I think there are times where they just kind of outthink themselves offensively, and I understand you can't give it to Benny Snell 45 times a game, especially when they're lined up in the box and got their ears pinned back and they're coming after you. But there's been some head scratchers there as far as what they're doing. If they get that offense figured out, as far as what they want to do in an offensive system at Kentucky, this won't be the last time Kentucky's talking about playing an SEC championship. Now the big thing is going to be, will they keep their coaching staff in place? Because when you get good, now everybody wants to kind of tap into that. Next thing you know, you're losing coordinators and even your head coach.
Well, and you talk about the offense, and a lot has been made about the quarterback spot. I think some of that is probably overblown. I think you brought in a kid in Terry Wilson who has a lot of ability, hasn't quite figured it all out, at least in the passing game yet, but I think his running ability has probably helped open things up for Benny Snell a little bit, and that's probably why he gets, maybe a bit of a pass in the passing game.
Well, the most popular kid on any football team's the backup quarterback. And I think Kentucky, I think Stoops has got to shut that down and say, look, Terry Wilson's our quarterback. We're going to ride him, good or bad, just like they did with Steven Johnson. If you remember, there was some people that weren't big on Steven Johnson. When he took over as the quarterback, and there were some people questioning whether or not he could do it. Now ask yourself, would you like to have Steven Johnson back running your offense? I'd say the answer would be yes. Stoops is, the problem with college sports nowadays, one of the bigger problems are parents. And when you've got a dad going to Twitter and saying, my kid's going to transfer if he doesn't play this week, like Danny Clark's dad did, and the next thing you know, Stoops plays him, you're just playing into that parent's hands. And the thing is, he's got to get behind Terry Wilson, good or bad, and say, Terry Wilson's my quarterback, until Terry Wilson does something to make him not be the quarterback anymore. And I think Gunnar Hoke's got some capability, but not this year. He's just not college ready yet. And when you're driving the football and doing things well, and then you bring in Hoke to run an offensive series and you go 3 and out, nothing demoralizes an offense more than 3 and out in a punt. And that's exactly what happened the other day at Missouri. They were doing some pretty good things, and then he decides, well, let's put Hoke in and see what happens. You're going to have to ride Terry Wilson, and he's your quarterback, and you got to get behind him. And the rotating quarterback thing doesn't work. And Stoops has got to do that, good or bad. And then if Terry Wilson gives you a reason to not play him, then you put Gunnar Hoke in or Danny Clark in. But, you got to quit playing to parental fears of transferring or anything like that. And I think that's exactly what Stoops did last week when he played all the quarterbacks.
Well, I keep telling UK fans that, you're supposed to enjoy this time. Your team is 7-1, and yes, probably coulda, shoulda, maybe won the Texas A&M game, I guess. It could have been 8-0, but you're 7-1. You're playing for a spot in the SEC championship game. I think if you're a UK fan, this is what you've always wanted, and you have to enjoy this time. And I think some people, want to make themselves miserable talking about the quarterback. And, right now, if you're a UK sports fan, you've got essentially the SEC East Championship coming up Saturday in Kroger Field against Georgia. And then the basketball season's opening up Tuesday with Duke, and it doesn't get any bigger than that. And I'll be honest, Scott, I haven't quite got caught up to basketball season yet. I'm still in fall sports mode. But if you're a UK fan, you got to enjoy this kind of time.
I kind of think it's in the DNA for UK fans to kind of worry and complain. And I don't mean that in a bad way, but, if you remember, Kentucky's undefeated, 38-0, and you got UK fans complaining about the Harrison shooting too much and why Tyler Eulis playing more and Devin Booker needs to be playing more. Now, I agree with that one, but, it's like, you're 38-0, and yet we're still complaining about things, and that's just how it is in sports, I guess, but I'm with you, enjoy it. And even if you don't win Saturday, the season's not over, and that's the thing that concerns me as a UK fan is if Kentucky loses to Georgia, they've still got to bounce back, and they've got games against Tennessee, Middle Tennessee, and Louisville. And if they can win out, they'll still get a New Year's Day Bowl. They'll go to the Citrus or the Outback Bowl and play Michigan, because Michigan seems like is in the Outback Bowl every year. But if they win out, they still get a good bowl game, and they still get national exposure. The thing you worry about is you lose Georgia, and you think, well, our season's over and whatever else, and then you slip up and you lose to Tennessee. And now Florida has leapfrogged you in terms of what bowl game you get. And then next thing you know, you could be staring at the Music City Bowl again, which I don't think will happen. But, you don't want 4 losses. You don't want your season to end 7-4, 8-4 when 3 weeks earlier you're playing for the SEC championship. And that's the thing as a Kentucky fan that concerns me a little bit is that if they don't win Saturday, they've still got to bounce back and got 3 more games.
We're talking with Scott Brown of Your Sports Edge and WKDZ Radio this morning on the Sideline Report. And, Scott, I really appreciate you coming on. And I wish we had another hour to talk, but we don't. And I do want to get one thing from you, though, because, like me, I know you're a big baseball fan. And your Cubs were in the playoffs. My Cardinals were not. But, man, the Red Sox, I thought maybe somebody would get them. But at the end, I think they were the best team by far. And just rolled to the World Series championship. And, I mean, what can you say? They were just that good this year.
That was a team that was built with very few weaknesses, and you could see that as the season played on. And whatever they're doing in Boston, hats off. I thought they might stumble a bit when Theo Epstein left, but, man, they've went into another gear. And, that you beat a Yankees team that almost won 100 games there, may have won 100, but there wasn't a lot of weaknesses there. And if nothing else, the Red Sox and the Astros both exposed the Dodgers for what their weaknesses were. And that was, lack of a solid starter after you get past Kershaw and the inability to drive in a run when they needed it. So I don't know. I'm a Cubs fan, and they won it a couple years ago and ended all that misery, and then lost in the league championship the following year. Excuse me. And then this year, it was lost in the wild card. I'm kind of good with that instead of being a Dodger fan and losing in the World Series back-to-back years. I don't know that I could handle that as a sports fan. And I definitely couldn't be a Buffalo Bills fan of the 1990s.
Oh, wow, yeah. Well, seems like sports just break your heart sometimes, and I guess that's just part of it. But, it seems like it's been a long time. The Cardinals won it in 2011, and, man, that seems like it was 50 years ago. And, of course, I know as a Cubs fan you're thinking, yeah, right, but Just seems like every year there's more and more teams out there that are getting good. You look at the NL Central for next year. Milwaukee is going to be really good. Chicago is going to be really good. I think the Cardinals have their work cut out for them just to get back to the playoffs.
I think the NL Central is going to turn into the AL West. I think the Central is going to be very solid. And boy, I cannot stand this team. But, man, the Reds seem to be putting some pieces in the right place. And they just hired Milwaukee's pitching coach. They got a new manager, and they've somehow hired away Milwaukee's pitching coach. So there's some talent there. I think they're still a couple years away, but I say that to say that, yeah, the NL Central is I think that's going to be the gold standard of the NL for the next several years. Now, you know, Milwaukee's done this before. They've had a good year, made a good run, and then they go in the tank for a couple years. And, you know, I'm not sold on the Brewers long term. I'll put it that way. I am more sold on the Cardinals long term than I am the Brewers. But we'll have to wait and see. You know, they proved a lot of people wrong this year.
Well, Scott, thanks for coming on the show this morning. I really appreciate it. And like I said, I wish we had about another hour because I'm only about halfway down my sheet of things that we're going to talk about. But I think we've just about run out of time. I do appreciate your time, though, and coming on this morning. And we'll do this again sometime.
Yeah, hopefully we'll see each other in the playoffs, football playoffs down the road. It'll take an upset or two, but, hey, that's why we play the games.
Oh, yeah. All right, thanks, Scott.
Appreciate you having me.
Yes.
Hey, thank you.
That's Scott Brown of Your Sports Edge and WKDZ Radio, and we thank him for joining us today on the Sideline Report. Once again, Caldwell County football in action tomorrow night here in town at Tiger Stadium. If you're a Tiger fan, get out there. Hopefully this rain will move on out, and the weather will be good for this time of year for football. Get out there. The playoffs start. The Tigers with Edmonson County. 7 o'clock is kickoff. If the Tigers win that game, they'll be at home again next week against either Union County or LaRue County. Well, that's going to wrap it up on the Sideline Report for this Thursday morning. Thanks for joining us. This is Todd Griffin of the Times Leader. I'm the sports editor there, so be sure and read me in the paper. Follow me on Twitter at Todd Griffin 100, and we'll do this again next week. Thanks for listening to the Sideline Report here on WPKY.